Hello everybody, it's Sylvie, welcome back. I hope you're doing good. Today is going to be my Libra season roundup, favourites, what I've been up to, decks I've been working with, all that good stuff. So I'm going to get straight into it. Libra season was a lot of fun. Libra season was my birthday, right at the start, right near the start of Libra season. I turned a whole another year older. Apparently, my actual birthday day was pretty chill, which is how I wanted it this year. I was spoiled by myself and by others with tarot decks and books and other cool things. There's a whole video of my birthday haul of goodies. So if you like a haul video and you want to have a nosy, check that one out. I won't rehash it all here because I think that was a pretty long one. But yeah, my birthday was good, and then the following weekend I went to visit my partner and celebrate their birthday as well, and we had several lovely cozy days drinking coffee and perusing bookshops and walking around their gorgeous city and like eating good food, and it was just a really lovely long weekend celebrating both of our birthdays. And then last weekend, or like 3 days ago as I'm filming this, it was also my brother's birthday. Me and my brother are living together at the moment, and we had a pretty chill morning and then spent the afternoon and a very long evening playing D&D, which was really good fun. So it's been a very celebratory birthday month for myself and some of my favourite people. So that's been really good, really fun. Kind of tiring in its own way. What else has been going on? Not much. I've had my first Christmas lunch invitation thing and have been planning where I'm going to be in December, where other people are going to be in December. It's always upsetting to realize that the whole festive period is actually not very far away. Suddenly the end of the year feels like it's right here, which is kind of scary because as I'm filming this, it's still October. There's still 2 months left of the year, but it feels like it's over. But anyway, aside from impending doom and everybody's birthday, it's been pretty uneventful, but I still have found it pretty tiring. So I don't know what that's about. I think I've just been trying to get into the groove of things. Autumn is always like a bit of a transition with the weather and the light changing and stuff, and I struggle with that. So I've just been trying to get into the groove of things, but it's been pretty good. It's been a pretty good few weeks. YouTube wise, I've been feeling really creative. I've been feeling generally really good about making videos. I hope you're enjoying what I'm putting out because I'm just feeling really good about this little channel at the moment. So yeah, that's my little update. I'm going to talk about some books that I've read and then some tarot decks I've been playing with. So that's what's happening. So books wise, I don't even know if they'll all oh god, I'm destroying the lighting situation. It's all going on. I read a lot of stuff in Libra season, which is pretty cool. So let's go through the stack. This is The Kraken Wakes by John Wyndham. I am quite a fan of some classic older sci-fi like John Wyndham, H.G. Wells, all that sort of thing. This is, I think, the third John Wyndham book I've read, and it's not my favourite. I've also read The Day of the Triffids and The Midwich Cookies. Both of those I thought were better than this. This was a little bit slow, but it was still alright. I usually categorize his stuff as cozy disaster sci-fi. It's very of its time, and it's kind of cozy disaster. This dragged a little bit, fell a little bit flat, but I still enjoy the general vibe of a older sci-fi, so it was fine. I also read The Kingdom of the Gods by N.K. Jemisin. This finishes up the Inheritance trilogy. This is the Inheritance trilogy. This is the third and final book in that trilogy. This was fantastic. Obviously, it's N.K. Jemisin, queen of sci-fi writing. She writes just such fantastic books. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed how it wrapped this series up, as well as the story that it was telling in its own right. This trilogy, they are sequential and they are related, but not in the traditional sense of the plot being a direct continuation. Like there's big gaps of time between each book. It's focusing on different characters because it centers around the gods, which are, you know, very long-lived and humans are much shorter-lived. So they kind of read as separate books, but they are interconnected, and it was all brought together really well in this one. So yes, this was amazing. And Jemisin is incredible. I need to move on to I've read the first book of 2 of her duologies, and then once I finish those up, I think I've read everything she's written, which is wild. So anyhow, amazing. No notes. The Witness for the Dead. This is by Katherine Addison. This is a, again, kind of non-sequential. I don't think sequential is the right word that I'm thinking of, but like this follows on from The Goblin Emperor, which is a fantastic book by Katherine Addison. Again, it's more fantasy. That's my shtick, is sci-fi fantasy. That tends to be like most, if not all, of what I read. This is a fantasy. The Goblin Emperor was this kind of like strangely cozy political minutia in this fantasy world, kind of like gaslamp fantasy, but in a world with like goblins and elves and all sorts of political goings on. Anyhow, this one was a bit more like crimey in terms of like how you'd subgenre it. It's kind of like fantasy crime. I hate crime. I hate crime. I hate noir. I think they're really boring. But this was good fun. I listened to the audiobook for this. I listened to the audiobook for almost all of these books. It's been audiobook central again these last few weeks, which is why I have no music to talk about, because I've not been listening to any aside from my running playlist when I go for a run. Anyhow, this was really enjoyable. It was kind of like not cozy crime, but because I think that's its own genre of like, I don't know, little old ladies solving crime at the seaside or something. But this was not like intense. It wasn't that like gritty kind of a crime. Anyway, fantasy. It explored the politics of this world a little bit more, and I really enjoyed it. So a witness for the dead in this world is somebody who can like speak to the souls of the recently departed, and then goes on to find out how they died and where they died and make sure that they're buried and looked after properly and that sort of thing. So this was fun. I think there's another one that is in this same like follow-on series, I guess, and I'm not sure that I'm desperate to get to it, but I did enjoy this. I would recommend The Goblin Emperor more. Anyhow, Jim, I would really recommend. It doesn't even fit in the frame because it's massive. It's there, I promise. It's a massive great book hardback. This is The Bitter Twins by Jen Williams. This is the second book in whatever the series is called. The Winnowing Flame trilogy. Oh, this was so good. This series is so good. Again, this is fantasy. We've got different like races of people, as in like humans and then non-humans, and they live in the same world, and there's this tragic backstory to the world and everything's kind of dying, and then shit kicks off in the first book. And this is it did suffer a little bit from like middle book syndrome. The pacing wasn't quite as exciting as the first book. There were some parts that seemed like they were really clearly setting things up for the final book in the trilogy, but that still didn't diminish how much I really enjoyed this book. I was like really racing through it. It was a really fun read. I love all the characters that we have continued to get to know from the first book. Oh, it's just so good. I literally finished one the other night, so I haven't... Was that even words? I finished this the other night, so I haven't started the third book yet, but I am going to be getting to it ASAP. Apologies to my Halloween books, I guess. They are getting firmly pushed by the wayside. But this is some really good fantasy. It's nice to be this excited about reading a fantasy trilogy, because, I mean, despite this, which is, did I call this sci-fi? This is fantasy. I don't know what's wrong with me today. We need to caffeinate. I actually do know what's wrong with me. Both my dog and my cat had me up at all hours of the night, so I'm sleep deprived. This was really good, but like I knew this was going to be good because N.K. Jemisin is a genius. So it was really nice to go into this trilogy, the Winnowing Flame trilogy, a little bit more, not knowing what I was going to expect, and then it being exactly the right kind of fantasy that I wanted. So very excited to finish this trilogy off. It's really good fantasy. I'm loving it. Also, it's nice because I have, like, as you can see from the like title page, I have this fancy special edition that I pay quite a lot of money for. I get a subscription box and we get like a book every month and 4 trilogies in a year. So it's nice that I'm really loving this book that I paid quite a lot for, you know? Anyway, moving on. Okay, this one actually was in my Halloween books list. I did a decks and books for October video showing some like Halloweeny decks and horror books, and this was in that list. This is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, and this was so good. I haven't read The Fall of the House of Usher, which this is based on. This is like a retelling on The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, and it's creepy mushrooms. It's creepy mushrooms. What more do you need to know? Anyhow, I have no idea how much it diverges from the source material or how closely it follows it or what have you, but I just really enjoyed this book for what it was. It was wonderfully creepy without like properly scaring me, because I'm a baby and I don't love to be frightened too badly, but especially not when I'm listening to the audiobook, which I did for this book. I was listening to the audiobook while I was walking the dog on like dark, foggy mornings, so I'm glad it wasn't any spookier and scarier than it was, because that might have been a bit much for me. But yeah, the mushroomy horror elements reminded me a lot of Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, so if you liked that, I would recommend this, and vice versa. Yeah, this was really good. It also is not long at all, and like the font's kind of big. Like this is a quick read or a quick listen if you're an audiobook person like me. But yeah, this was really fun, and it was really creepy, and it was just exactly what I hoped it would be. Okay, this is my last like non-tarot thing. This is Fledgling by Octavia E. Butler. This wasn't on my spooky season reading list, but what better time to read a vampire book, you know? I actually started this about a year ago when this edition of the paperback came out. This was first published in like, I want to say 1990? No. 2005. Where the fuck did I get 1990 from? I don't know. It was reprinted with this fun cover last year. I bought it. I started it. I lost the book. It was nowhere to be seen, I swear. But it reappeared last week. I picked it up. I finished it. This was brilliant, as you would expect from Octavia E. Butler. It was a fantastic take on the vampire genre, and I really loved the way she subverted a lot of the vampire tropes and the vampire mythos, and like what she created for this book. Like, I would read more books just based on the like structure of vampires in our world that she created. Sadly, we're obviously not going to get that, but it was really, really cool. And then this book was also a really interesting exploration of power dynamics and like how messy they can be, particularly through the human vampire relationships that show up in this book. And yes, this was really good. This was also really easy to read in terms of like getting through the pages. There are some bits that were a little bit more difficult to read in terms of like subject matter and reckoning with what was going on in the book and how I felt about it. Again, as I kind of would expect from Octavia E. Butler, done well. But in terms of like getting through the pages, it was easy to read. I wasn't struggling to read it. I just had to think about what I was reading, which, you know, is not a bad thing. So that's Fledgling. That is my last fiction book that I have been reading. Okay, so this is Radical Tarot by Charlie Claire Burgess. The camera doesn't like it because it's screwing with my white balance, but anyhow, this came out about a month ago. It's their latest book. I pre-ordered it. It's fantastic. I've been using this as my like go-to book for interpretations alongside my readings when I'm pulling cards. And I just love this so, so much. So I've been, like I say, dipping in and out of it when I've been doing tarot readings. These tabs, I think, just correlate to the latest like reading that I did, that I used this book for. I'm highlighting it. I'm loving it so much. So I was doing that, and then I started, and I'm just reading this from page 1 and like highlighting and writing things and just having the best time reading this book. Honestly, I've just been really loving it. So the major arcana section is fantastic. You can see there's like pages for each of the major cards. What is this? A napkin. Wonderful. I took this to a cafe, so I think this is an O for oat milk. Not that you asked, but anyhow. Yeah, the major arcana section is fantastic. The focus on modernizing and queering and redefining the tarot is really well explored in there. They go through that in their manifesto, which you can see I highlighted so much because I love their take on things. It aligns so much with my take on things generally, and has been put into words in a way that I've not seen put into words before. So I'm having the best time reading this and being like, yes, I feel very connected with what they're saying, which is great. I'm jumping all over the place a little bit because I'm excited about this book. Yeah, the majors are fantastic. We've got these like pages and pages for each of the cards. The minors are a lot more brief. That's the chord. The minors are a lot more brief, which on the one hand, I wish they were as well fleshed out as the majors because I love their writing and I just want more. But I get that I don't want to say point of this book, but one of the main goals of this book is to update and redefine and queer the archetypes, which are obviously more present in the major arcana. That's what the major arcana is. So it makes sense that the major arcana section is much more, is gone over in much more depth than the minors. So I get it. I want more just because I love it, not because I think it's necessarily missing anything. And I do like what's in here. I just want more. But that's not really a complaint. I only want more because I like it so much, you know? Anyhow, I have not yet actually read with the Fifth Spirit deck alongside this book, which would be the obvious pairing because Charlie Claire Burgess created the Fifth Spirit Tarot. I haven't got around to picking it up yet. There's so many decks that I want to work with, and I'm loving this as just my kind of go-to handbook at the moment when I want to dive a little bit deeper into things. So that was my praise for Radical Tarot. If you have not picked this up, if you've been on the fence, I could not recommend it more highly. I haven't finished it yet, but you know, from what I have read, I love it a lot. So no surprises there. Really enjoying this. All right, so that's all my books. Moving on to tarot decks. This is the Fairy Tarot by Natalie Hertz, and this was my daily pull deck for Libra season. The way my daily pulls work, I used to do them monthly because I was in a pre-printed 2023 little planner, but I've started doing them according to the like zodiac months. So this is my Libra season page. I got an undated calendar. I have a whole video about this, which I will link if you want to check that out, but I got an undated calendar. I got real arty with it. I don't know who I think I am all of a sudden, like here's Scorpio. But so I like started on the 23rd of September, ended on the 22nd of October, and this is my Libra season daily pull calendar spread thing. These blank days, I was away, I didn't take the deck with me. I couldn't be bothered to backfill it, so I didn't. But yeah, I just note down the card that it is, and then I jot down from the guidebook some keywords, some interpretations. Basically, this is a practice to get to know a deck rather than a practice of actually like reading tarot and applying it to my day. Like this isn't a single card draw so much as just a getting to know the deck practice, if that makes sense. But anyhow, considering this is a little white book situation, you actually get quite a lot from the guidebook, I think. So it's really, really tiny font, but like there's a description of the card and the artwork specifically in the deck, upright and reverse meanings, and like these are like keywords. I like it. It's honestly like I say, considering it's a little white book, this is a good little white book. I really enjoyed working with it. I didn't find it boring or derivative, which sometimes can happen when I'm doing this practice with different decks. Like occasionally I'm like, this is just a really bad guidebook and I don't look forward to doing my daily draw, whereas this was really fun. I had no problems keeping up with it in Libra season. Yeah, this is pretty loyal to the Rider-Waite-Smith as decks go, but is clearly set in its own world. I will get back to the cards and show you some artwork. So yeah, as you can see, it's very much set in its own world. I did these edges, by the way, because I love all the rainbow borders. So I feel like the best way to describe this is kind of running parallel to the Rider-Waite-Smith. The meanings are mostly the same, but sometimes they get there a different way and they have a bit of a different flavor to them. So yeah, I really enjoyed working with this deck. It's colourful, it's got a lot of personality. I think it's probably going to be a good one to grab and read year round. Like you can see the swords are really wintry, like they've got the seasonal associations for all of the minor suits. So although it's colourful, it's not necessarily like spring summery. I have it in my autumn deck basket at the moment because I was feeling the end of summer blues and wanted to keep working with some colourful decks. This is also just a gorgeous, gorgeous deck. I love the art style. There is another Natalie Hertz deck that I don't have. I think it's like Fantastical Creatures or something like that. But it's out of print and I haven't come across a copy at a price I'm willing to pay yet. I have faith. But anyhow, I love her art style. I've also got her Vampires Tarot. And yeah, overall, I just really enjoyed pulling this deck out and reading with it every day. It's a nice combination of whimsical and light-hearted, and then also like, even though it's a fairies deck, it's not sugary and fluffy. It's like a little bit like spiky and cheeky. It was fun. So as for other decks I've been using, I'm not going to show you my pages in my journal because my daily readings are a bit more personal, and these are actually readings. So who do I want to grab? The first week or so of Libra season, I was working with the Wild Unknown Pocket Tin Oracle Tarot and the Heavenly Bodies Astrology Oracle. I really enjoyed how these two work together, and honestly, I've been pleasantly surprised by how much I like working with the Wild Unknown in general. I was put off it for so long because the cards look so sparse and they're really lacking a lot of the traditional symbolism that I'm used to, and so I thought it was going to be hard to read. And obviously it doesn't read the same way as a more obviously Rider-Waite-Smith inspired deck, although it is clearly based on that system, especially if you read the guidebook, but it doesn't read the same way. But I do still find it to be a pretty clear reader, honestly, and I've come to really love some of the artwork. Like, I love this Temperance. I think it's lovely. But anyhow, I worked with these two by pulling a Heavenly Bodies Oracle card and then using the keywords to pull some tarot cards. Kind of like using this to create a mini spread on the fly. So although this was my daily reading, in terms of it was the reading I was doing every day, it wasn't like strictly about my daily life. Like, it wasn't strictly about my day. So like here, if I pulled the fire card, we've got confidence, optimism, passion, and bravery. So I would then pull cards maybe to how do I embody each of these, and I'd pull 4 cards and see what I came up with. So like, that's not like a day specific reading, if you know what I mean. But yeah, so these were a little bit more high effort than my daily readings usually are. There's a lot I don't know about astrology, so I had to hit up the guidebook, and sometimes I'd have to spend a few minutes sitting with the astrology card before I could pull any tarot cards to really know what I was pulling for. But yeah, I really liked these readings, but definitely more high effort than I'm used to. But don't they look good together? Anyway, that was these two. Okay, next I want to talk about the Tarot of Aphrodite. Obviously, to me, I had to use my Love Goddess decks in Libra season. The sign is ruled by Venus, so it had to be done. Yeah, I used this one for my Libra season spread because, like I say, it felt too perfect. And I love it. I love this deck. I backed it on Kickstarter. There's a second edition currently funding, I believe. So if you missed this the first time round, I think some of the cards are different. I think the finish is going to be glossy instead of matte. But there is a second edition funding. So go check that out if you feel like you missed out. So yeah, I used this for my Libra season spread. I've worked with this before. I know I love this deck. And I also paired it, I'm going to make a mess now. I paired it with the Sea Soul Journeys Oracle cards. So this was a week or so of my daily readings in October. I've been liking doing my daily readings. I'll pull like 2 tarot cards and an oracle. And I think here I actually just pulled one of each because that was enough for me when I was pulling these cards. So yeah, I had to pull the ocean deck with the Aphrodite deck because, like, Aphrodite in the sea, it had to be done. Aesthetically, I'm not sure how much I love these, although I'm pulling really nice pairs, but in all other aspects, this was a total vibe. Like, actually, these are looking really gorgeous together, like, and even these colors. When I pulled them every day, they were not looking quite as good together, but now they're stunning. So anyhow, I really enjoyed these two together. The Tarot of Aphrodite always feels like quite a low pressure reader for me, if that's even the right phrasing for it. Like, it brings up just as much difficult or intense stuff as any other deck can, but it feels like it's at a bit more of a distance. So it's not exactly gentle, but it doesn't feel as urgent as some decks can. Oh, I love these two together. Death and May It Be Effortless. Isn't that such a nice card to go with death? Because, like, death is all the pain of transformation. Anyhow, yeah, so the Aphrodite Tarot has that, like, big picture kind of feeling, and I think paired with the Sea Soul Oracle, it leans more into that big picture perspective in a reading. And so it felt, yeah, like low pressure is the only way I can think to describe it. Like, they didn't feel urgent, like it just felt like advice that I could take or I could leave, and it was really nice pair to read with. So along with the Tarot of Aphrodite, when I say Love Goddess decks, I have been obsessed with this. This is the Goddess of Love Tarot. This came out really recently. I feel like everyone's, rightfully in my opinion, everyone's loving this. I love this. I think it's fantastic. I've been obsessed with using it. I took it away with me for a few days when I went to visit my partner and had that, like, long weekend. This was my carry with me deck because I just love it. I've done a second impressions mini review kind of a video on this if you want more of my thoughts, but basically I think it's a beautiful deck and I cannot stop using it. Isn't it gorgeous? Anyhow, so I used this for some daily readings, which I'll show you in a minute. I've used this for some bigger spreads. I've just been in love with the Goddess of Love Tarot. I don't know why I'm not showing you them together, but, like, I'm doing this in chronological order. So the penultimate week of Libra season, I was using the Sustain Yourself Oracle and the Crow's Magic Tarot together. Actually, I think I'm completely wrong. I think I was using how good to have the chameleon card with that little, like, gecko creature. I think I was using 2 Oracle and 1 Tarot with this pairing. So yeah, I was using 2 Oracle and, like, these keywords. I was mostly playing with the keywords. So I was using 2 Oracle and being like, okay, what does this represent for me? What does this represent for me? And then the tarot card in the middle is what's between them. This is a type of reading that I do a lot. I spoke about it in my 54321 video. But yeah, anyhow, I had these paired. I really like these together. I love the way they look together. But like I say, it was pairing the keywords that really, really did it for me with these two. I don't have any kind of guidebook for the Crow's Magic because this was the like replica copy that was up on Make Playing Cards recently, but I did use the guidebook for the Oracle quite a lot. And so, like I say, I'd pull 2 Oracle cards, I'd read the guidebook, I'd think about what each of these things represent for me, and then I'd be pulling my tarot to say what like brings them together or what connects them or connects them to me or whatever the case may be, depending on what comes up. And that was mostly with the keywords, and then my knowledge of the tarot card kind of in the back of my mind is this like context. I do think the keywords of the Crow's Magic tend to work well with the keywords on the Sustain Yourself. Like there's quite a lot of flow there in a lot of the ones that I picked. They were just really fun and I really enjoyed. You know I love the Sustain Yourself. I never shut up about it, and I feel like I've been neglecting the Crow's Magic, so it was really nice to bring that out. I want to edge this, but do I edge it in black or do I edge it in red? I can't decide. Then for the last week of Libra season, I pulled it all together and I used the Goddess of Love alongside the Sustain Yourself. I love how these look together. These are 2 of my absolute favourite decks at the moment. So, like, isn't that so perfect? Yeah, I wanted to use them both because they're 2 of my favourite decks currently. And like, I feel like that really works. Anyways, I liked how these read together. I think the art is not the most cohesive in the world, but they definitely don't look bad together. I really like green and pink as a colour combination, and there's a lot of pink in this deck. Obviously the borders and like the backs. Green and pink. It's just gorgeous. Is it not a gorgeous colour combination? Anyhow, I was reading these for my daily reading, 2 Tarot and Oracle, as my more of this, less of that, something to consider reading, which is my like go-to daily kind of vibe check reading, basically. Reading 2 tarot cards together as advice, and then the 3rd oracle is a bit of a something to ponder, I guess. But yes, I really enjoyed this pairing, to absolutely nobody's surprise. I did start the week by pulling out the Goddess of Love guidebook, but it has, and this is not a negative, but this is just, this deck is a love magic, sex magic deck, and so the guidebook is written accordingly, which is to be expected, but it wasn't necessarily what my daily readings are aiming at, so I kind of ended up just going off the imagery and my own meanings, and I think it worked really well for that. So I didn't feel like I needed the extra guidance of the guidebook, but I do think it's a good guidebook. It's just not always applicable if you're using this deck for more like general readings. So anyhow, I was still working with the guidebook for the Sustain Yourself. I really like the interpretations in this, and yeah, this threw out some really interesting things. There were a couple of days where my kind of something to consider afterthought was aligning with my like do less of this card, which I basically took to mean that less of that doesn't mean none of that, you know? Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of a thing. But I felt like they were really talking to each other. I just really enjoyed this pairing, and I'm gonna stop because I think you get the point. So I think that's everything for Libra season. These last few weeks seem to have really just flown past. I don't know about you, but personally I feel like I blinked and suddenly we're in Scorpio season, and I hate being the person who says stuff like that, like, oh, can you believe it's blah 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 already? But like this time, genuinely, where did Libra season go? I felt like my calendar wasn't busy, but I felt really busy. But anyhow, I've got some exciting stuff coming up, but hopefully we'll be able to settle into a little bit more of a routine and feel a little bit more tethered in the coming weeks, because I feel like I need that. Anyways, I will let you go now. If you've made it this far into the video, I hope that Libra season has been kind to you, and I hope Scorpio season is good to you too. Thank you so much for watching and for spending some time with me. Give me a like if you liked it and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.